All right, let's go.
All right, Mike, thanks for joining me. I'm really grateful for this. It's an awesome opportunity for me, but also for my supporters to hear from you. You know, what goes into this work, what it actually takes, and I'm grateful for you taking your time out of your schedule.
Glad to be here, Coach Canty. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate you.
Awesome. So I'm going to introduce you. You're the director of the Hoop Consultants. You provide a resource for coaches that have a passion for teaching the game. You have 20 years of experience coaching professional players in the development area. Um, so my first question, Mike, is I heard you say in a podcast before that you just wanted to be around the game of basketball at a young age. And what I took away from listening to that was, you know, two things really. One was you were willing to do anything. Um, you were the scorekeeper at a summer league in high school basketball, and then you were willing to take chances. You were not on a whim. You reached out to the Boston Amateur Basketball Club. You also reached out to a Nike executive to join a Nike All-American camp. So my question is, I just kind of wanted to know your start, like your progression. Like a lot of people listening want to be around the game of basketball, but for you, like, what did it mean to want to be around the game of basketball at a young age?
Yeah, Coach Canty, I've been around the game. I was around the game when I was young. Played it, wasn't very good. Didn't really know what I want to do in my life. In high school, college, um, and I, I got an opportunity just to be at these camps, and I was a manager at Suffolk University, and I thought it was a good. I really enjoyed being around the game. There was really no business in basketball besides like being a professional college coach. So I really didn't want to be a college coach, but I wanted to be around the game. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and then I had this opportunity with the Boston Amateur Basketball Club, which AAU was pretty new at the time as far as like anyone really knowing about it. It was pretty much a small deal, and so for me, it was a great opportunity to like, to sort of be, you know, to travel around, see different parts of the game, see different people, what they did, talk to them, worked a bunch of camps when I was in the summer, like 11, 12 weeks every summer. And just being able to travel the country and just see just sort of the different ways basketball was played and coached. And I just wanted to be around it. And so with Leo, Papale's BABC team was around a lot of great players.
Yeah,
Vince Carter, Jermaine O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, and playing against guys like that, and then playing in great high level competition. I just really wanted to be around it. And then I sort of got lucky, got a few great mentors that helped me. And, we had George Raveling, where I called him up on a whim to work Nike All American Camp, and
right.
some of these other people that really took me under their wing to really take the time to try to help me and guide me in the right way, right place to try to, try to steer me in the right direction in basketball to sort of go after what I wanted to do.
Yeah. So by willing to do things and take chances, um, you work yourself into meeting people that you might not have met if you didn't do those types of things, right? And you've got to take in experiences and learning experiences um, that some people would have never got just by saying, "Oh, I want to be around the game." But you went for it. And you went out to this Nike camp and you met people that changed your life. You met like you had mentioned, you met these three guys that really taught you about the game of basketball. Um, so just like taking a chance was a really big part of you starting and willing to try different things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think anybody trying to start a career in anything should go through the same sort of stages, not necessarily the same journey that I made, but like the same stages, like being young, just not saying much, just trying to take as many notes and meet as many people and sort of get as much information as I could.
Yeah,
Not necessarily a networking, but just sort of knowledge. And then you take the knowledge and you sort of start to grow it and you start to use it. And then you start making mistakes and you start actually doing things by yourself and making mistakes. And I made a lot of them,
yeah,
but I was able to be around some good people and continue to get knocked down and continue to sort of grow sort of my knowledge of my craft and trying to do as much as I can with it.
So I heard you talk on once you got that start, right? You were working out players, but a big thing for you was finding a routine. There was a quote I heard you say, and it had something to do with Mike Tyson, and it was either him or someone speaking to him said, no matter what kind of day you're having, do the same thing over and over again, and that's how you create winning habits. Can you
Yeah.
into the routine you were talking about there?
Sure. So I was watching this movie on Netflix. Actually, it was a Mike Tyson, one of those Mike Tyson, sort of movies that wasn't, it was a sort of a drama, whatever you want to call it, biography, and it was him as a young fighter, and he had an old trainer in New York where he's living, I think upstate, and he said, "Hey, Mike, what's a pro to you? What does a professional mean to you?" And of course, Mike, just like any young kid, would say, "Hey, it's about getting paid." And the guy goes, "It's got nothing to do with money. It's got to do with doing, regardless of what kind of day you're having, regardless of what kind of day you're having, sort of doing the same thing over and over and over again, and to a high level. It doesn't matter how you're feeling and how you're doing. You just continue to do the same thing." So, yeah, I thought that sort of took me. I took that to heart for sure, and I think that you could use that in development, and try to really try to tell that to players and coaches that are trying to do things in their craft. I think anybody, to be professional in anything is about doing the same thing over, winning habits and winning routines day in and day in and day in and day out, and building those habits.
You learn, like you said earlier, you learn from your mistakes. Because for me, I took that advice from you, and I've been training players recently every day. And there's things I made mistakes on, right? And people have pointed out to me like things that I'm making mistakes on. But the fact that I'm doing it, I've had the opportunity to fix those mistakes. So I'm growing through my own mistakes just by repeatedly doing the same things over and over again. And I'll continue to get better at it.
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, I see you on social media all the time, and I think that's continue to work out boys, work out girls, and continue to get better. I think we all got to make mistakes. I think learning from those mistakes and getting feedback. I talked to George Raveling a lot, who was director. I mean, he was the head coach at USC, Iowa, Washington State, but one of the most respected coaches ever to coach.
Yeah.
And he said at Nike they have a slogan: always listen to the voice of the athlete, which tells me that the players that we work with, or just continue to ask them questions about how the training's going or how the coaching's going. Let them see, let them give you some feedback, and then always listen to the people that sort of you're working with. And I think listening to the voice of the athlete has taken me a long way as far as sort of developing a good routine working with players.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard you. That kind of brings me to what I wanted to talk about here. Was like I heard you say that. I mean, you were the director of player development with the Dallas Mavericks.
Right.
You kind of thought of yourself more as like a career coach, because it wasn't just on the court; it was off the court too. And you needed to develop these players into the people and the characteristics they needed to come to stay and fit in the league, right?
Yeah, for 20 years, I've been around coaching, good coaching, bad coaching, middle of the road coaching. And I've been around players. I've been around great players. I've been around not so great players. I've been around terrible players.
Right.
And continue to just to pay attention to what works, what doesn't. All these players doing all these drills day in and day out, year in and year out. And some of them move on. Some of them don't make it. Some of them make it. I really love to study the journeyman. What makes a player like back in the day was like Jimmy Jackson, who played for like 12, 13 different teams, but continue to get jobs every year. And all these veterans and guys that I was around with the Celtics or the Mavericks or worked out in the summertime, and what made them stick. And I think being a director of player development, I could have got in there and just said, all right, I'm just going to work out and get shots up and that's it. Or we're going to figure out, okay, yeah, we need to develop the skills, which is very important, don't get me wrong, but developing off the court skills and routine, because the common phrase that I would always use to players, look, I'm developing you for the Mavericks or somebody else. You know, the biggest thing is if you don't make it and you get traded or cut from us, you know, we invested money in you. That the other team didn't really invest much in you, and nothing at all. So when you get there, they're already going to have players that are in their plans. They're going to give you a little bit of a chance. So if you come in and you don't really have a really big time plan of, all right, this is what I need to do day in and day out to stick, you have a very low chance of making it. I mean, you can go to Basketball Reference all the time and look at these players and where they played and how long they played for. And I think you always have to try to ask yourself why players make it and why players don't, and try to make some changes to sort of make yourself relevant for as long as you can.
Yeah, yeah, I find that in what I'm starting to do. Like a lot of the players are just they're showing up and they're working and they're developing the routines, but like you just said, it's about how you act as a person, because I might not work with you forever, but if I can set you up to get your next job or wherever you're going to go. And then the thing you touched on, you had broken down really the numbers, and I don't remember the numbers exactly, but you were saying something along the lines of there's close to 500 players in the NBA, and like 105 players are taking 10 or more shots a game. So you really need to develop a skill set. Where do you contribute to helping the team? What makes you valuable to the team? Because most likely it's not going to be shots, because 80% of the players who make the NBA aren't shooting shots, right?
Yeah, for sure. I really, when I got to the Mavericks, I was sort of trying to feel my way through it and see where, where I could help the most. And we drafted this kid in the second round named Ricky Leto. And Ricky was a Providence kid, played locally, played at Providence for 1 year, actually didn't play, was academically ineligible, and they came out for the draft. And, he was a player that always had the ball in his hands. Typical AAU kid, typical really talented kid, played multiple schools or whatever. And what I tried to tell him and tried to sort of, because he's like the first draft class that I was working with Dallas in 2013, and I was trying to get a point across where, look, like you're used to taking all these shots. You're used to taking all these shots and having the ball in your hands all these times. And I watched. I mean, there's a million kids like Ricky, but Ricky was really talented.
Yeah,
and
you got the lower levels, right? It's just another tier. Like,
yeah, but
if you're good in middle school, you might not be good in high school.
Yeah, I mean, Ricky could have been a 9-10 year NBA player, but I think being able to come into a situation with us, we had when he got to us, he had Vince, we had Dirk Nowitzki, Vince Carter, Jose Calderon, a couple other players that he had to play off of. So my big thing was to Ricky was like, look, you're used to having the ball in your hands at all times. You were the LeBron James or Kobe Bryant of every team you played for. But on this team, you're going to be the fifth best player on the floor at all times, unless you're in with the third unit just in a blowout. Then I started doing some research, and I'm not really a huge numbers guy, but doing some research about, okay, what do I consider a player who's a sort of not a go-to guy, but a go-to guy would be 20 shots a game, 18 shots a game. But like, what would be the Mendoza line of a go-to guy? And I said, all right, 10 shots a game would probably be, you're consistently getting plays run for you. So I looked, and there's 30 teams, there's 15 roster spots per team, that's 450. Now we have the two-way players, if you want to count them, which those are two additional players that each team has that are in the D League that they can call up throughout the year. So that's 510 players. And then let's look and see how many players every year gets 10 or more shots a game. And it was like 105, 110, depending on the year. So I was like, look, here are the numbers. There's 500 players in the NBA. There's 110, 105 of them getting 10 shots a game, getting plays called for them. So now there's there's roughly 400 plus players that don't get plays called for them. So they have to sort of survive with being bottom feeders and being people who have to be patient, have to like play defense or cut or do some other things to stay relevant. Yeah. So, I mean, Jake, what do you want to do? I mean, you're a guy who's been around the North Shore a little bit. Are you trying to get jobs or trying to do other things in basketball right now besides training?
I'm putting my name in for different coaches' jobs locally. Um, I grew up, in the Hunt Lynn, mostly, and then I branched out. I did some NCAA college basketball. I went over to Ireland. I coached a little bit. So,
Talk to me about the Ireland experience. Like I'm always curious. I'm a big, when I came in with the Celtics, I was somebody who, they had me following Europe, watching tape and watching film. What did you think of the FIBA game and working with players at that level?
yeah, so I think they're really well focused on developing the skill set of how to play as a team. Where here it's a lot of player development stuff like that, but they're practicing 5-on-5s constantly. If they're not doing the 5-on-5, it's the skills of how you're going to get into the 5-on-5 action, how you're going to come off of the screen, how you're going to set up the screen. So they're doing a lot of team building stuff together in a team atmosphere, and they're practicing that. The repetitions of that stuff are the same way we here would do repetitions rather of a certain jump shot or a certain dribble drive we wanted to do. Like they're working on how that dribble handoff is. If they put a defense, if the defense overplays a dribble handoff, maybe they'll go back door. So they're practicing game situations constantly. I think I found over there.
What was that? What was the difference between that and when you were in college coaching the United States? What was the difference between the development of the players?
Yeah, so I mean, there was a lot. When I was a coach, I was an assistant mostly. So there was a lot to take either a group of 1 to 3 players in the gym and work on their rips, their counters, their dribble drives, just footwork, get their shot off, create space. A lot of that type of stuff I did here. And I'm not saying they don't do that in Ireland, but it's not as focused on as it is developing teams.
And how are you going to take the things that you worked on and worked with in Europe, like say you get one of the jobs that you're trying to get, and I know you will, because you're a resourceful basketball guy that's well respected in the North Shore, especially. How are you going to take that into your new venture, whatever school is lucky enough to have you?
Yeah, so I can take both areas of experience, right? And I can take a little bit from both. And I'd like to bring in, I want to develop players as individuals because, if they're at a young age, if I get a job coaching at a young age, they still need to develop individually a lot. But that Ireland experience, I can bring that experience over and say, look, there's team concepts. If someone's dribble driving, you need to know how to space the floor and keep moving to be available for the pass. Like these little type of things of team basketball, simple drills you can do with one other guy where you dribble drive and the other guy, moves to the corner or rises up depending on the situation. So these little type of things, I can add that experience I learned in Ireland plus the player development I learned when I was here. And it's a good combination, I think, as a coach.
That's funny that you said you're from Nahan. I know you more of a Lynn guy than someone who's from the Nahan area.
Well, I grew up, my grandfather's from Lynn, and then my mother, we moved to Nahan. So when I was like 12 or a little bit younger, there wasn't much basketball being played in Nahan. My uncle taught me in Nahan, and then he brought me over to Lynn to play. And once I got over to Lynn, I really fit in that community. People took me in. I played CYO at St. Mary's. I played AAU from like the age 12 on. And it was all in Lynn. A lot of my relationships started right there in the city of Lynn. And that's where I learned. That's where I first my first experience of learning competition. Right when I was in the Han, I was always one step ahead. But when I went over to Lynn, even kids my age, but mostly kids older than me, were challenging me to be better if I wanted to stay in the court. And that's the way it is in Lynn. There's a lot of competition in Lynn. And it's a great place to go up learning how to play the game because you'll learn the hot way. You're not good enough.
No, it's fun. I mean, Lynn's always been a basketball hotbed. I mean, I remember the first year at Leo Procopio, I was hearing about Lewis Eaton. Who was the kid that played?
I know his parents well. His mom. I know Lewis Eaton's mom, who sadly passed away, but she was an amazing person. He's got a younger brother and a sister that's closer to my age. Great guy, though.
Yeah, I remember coaching Dwight Brewington early on in a camp in Marblehead. the Anderson brothers. I mean, there's a lot of history. There was another Calvin Johnson, right? There was another guy.
Yep, they're actually related. Calvin's related to the Andersons as well.
Did Calvin go to MCI?
Yep, Calvin went to MCI, and Tony Anderson went to MCI. So there's a few of them that went to MCI.
Yeah, I knew there was a long time coach there. Max Good was a close friend of mine. I don't think Calvin played for him, and I think he left to go to UNLV when Anderson got there. I think there's another gentleman who coached him.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of guys that played NEPSAC. I don't want to give you wrong information, but I know for a fact Troy Brown went and played in the NEPSAC.
Ah, Troy Brown, right?
Yeah. I can't remember which school it was, but he went to the NEPSAC before he went to Providence. So I went to the NEPSAC myself. I played at Bridgeton Academy.
Whit LeJour.
Whit LeJour, yep. He's one of my favorite people. He's another guy who taught me the game of basketball and taught me team basketball too. And he held people accountable and he told it like it was. Like if he felt something about the team, he was going to share exactly what he felt. And the best thing about Whit was when players were getting recruited, and we had a lot of Division One, our whole roster was Division One players. And when they were getting recruited, coaches would come to our practices, and I would hear them he would tell them the worst parts of their game before he would even get into, if they could contribute. He's going to tell you really exactly what that player is. So they knew when they talked to Whit, they could trust his opinion because he's going to tell them everything. He's not going to sell the player. He's going to tell you exactly what that player is, what you're getting.
And that's where I feel as though you're going to bring as a coach honesty, and you're going to tell the players exactly what they need to do to succeed. I mean, that's been your MO your whole career, ever since I've known you. So I think that those are some great traits that you could bring to the next school that's going to be lucky enough to have you.
Yeah. I mean, this has been great. The one thing I know some of the kids are going to want to hear about, there's a lot of supporters I have that want to hear about, you were Kobe Bryant's personal video breakdown coach. I think if you don't mind just sharing a little bit of that experience, because people would love to hear about your experience.
Yeah, sure. So back in 2009, there was an article written in the New York Times. Michael Lewis, who wrote the famous book Moneyball. So they had this article written. I remember where I was when I was reading. I was in my office when I was working for Attack Athletics and Tim Grover in Chicago. And I read this article, and it was about how the Houston Rockets gave Shane Battier the statistical report of how to sort of contain Kobe Bryant. I thought it was pretty interesting at the time. I was a huge Kobe fan because I was an MJ fan. And
Tim Grover, if people don't know, was Michael Jordan's trainer, and then as well Kobe Bryant worked with. And you worked for him, right?
Yeah, absolutely, for 10 years. And Tim's a dear friend and, my favorite boss of all time. He was working with Kobe as his personal strength coach, like he was doing with MJ throughout his career. And so I read this article. About a month later, I was down in Minnesota with Kevin McHale, just hanging out and watching his team play. He was coaching the Timberwolves at the time. And I get this call from Tim saying, "Hey, look, Kobe's going to call you. There's this article written about him. Do you know about it? About how the Houston Rockets shut him down or whatever, or trying to shut him down through stats." And I go, "Yeah, I read it. It was pretty interesting." So he goes, "Well, he's going to be calling you." So he texted me and emailed, and he was saying, "Hey, look, can you get some intel for me? And about this whatever teams have on me to try to shut me down, so I could sort of combat it." And I said, "Yeah, sure, I could do that." And I looked, and I looked at looked at all the data, asked some friends of mine that were coaches and scouts in the league, and they basically gave me the same runaround answer. "Hey, look, you got to shut them down. You got to force them to take tough shots and whatever." And I just felt as though that was sort of like a vanilla answer as far as like what everybody's going to tell them. And being around players as long as I have, I knew if I was going to come back with that answer, he would brush it off and I would never hear from him again. Now, I wasn't thinking about getting a job with the guy. I wanted to get him some good information that would help him. And I think that, I was taught and sort of through experience, like when you work with players, it doesn't matter what level, like that when they ask you for something, give them something that's going to help them, not something that they're going to hear every day. If there's an answer to be given. So I said, okay, let me just watch all these games. Let me watch like 6 or 7 games that he played against Houston and see the shots he was taking, the defensive assignments, some of the things they were making him, forcing him to do on defense. So I wrote up this report, and not only about what they were doing in Houston, but some of the things that he wasn't doing. Some of the tough shots he would take, forcing him, what was Shane Battier doing defensively to him that was sort of combative to his game plan. So I wrote up this report, gave him a lot of negative things that he was doing that I think he'd be doing better. So the Houston Rockets are playing like in a day or two. So it took about a day or two to give him the report. And basically saying, look, like they're forcing you into these tough shots. Every time you drive, you get the ball mostly in the triangle, or you get the ball mostly in the left wing. And when you drive it, they would take you out of the middle, force you baseline, force you to your left hand, and they're going to force you into Yao Ming. So either you're going to take this fadeaway jump shot from 22 feet against Shane Battier, who never leaves his feet and is always going to have his hands in your face, or you're going to drive into this, huge mass of a human being and try to jump over him. And look, you've dunked on Yao Ming before. It's not like you can't score on Yao Ming, but it's a low percentage play. And I said, look, the two guys that you're not really using, you got Pau Gasol's the second best player on your team. Obviously you use him on post stuff, but like you need to get Yao away from the basket. So every time you drive, you need like Yao. I mean, you need Pau Gasol like at that elbow, that ball side elbow to be able to like draw Yao to you and then kick to Pau, who can really shoot. So he can make that 15 or 17-foot shot. And, also like it's going to draw Yao to either give up the shot or sprint out to Pau, and Pau could just drive by him because he was a joke offensively. He's so good. And that's it. Another guy you weren't really using was, in that right corner, in that weak side corner was Trevor Ariza. And, they acquired Trevor, and he wasn't really a big part of their team yet, but I thought he could be a focal point, a great fourth option for them going forward. And I said, look, you could, get him for spot up jumpers on the weak side. You could cut, you could straight line drive. So there's a lot of things you can do that you're not doing. So anyway, I give him this report, Kevin McHale starts laughing at me. He's like, look, do you think, you think he's going to, you think he's going to like this or whatever? I said, I don't care, Kevin. Look, it's Kobe Bryant. It's not like it's, Brian Scalabrine who's asking me for this. This is the best player in basketball. So it was cool. We watched the game. And, he had a great game. He had 30-plus points. But the clincher, probably like a minute and a half left, he was being guarded up top. I think it was Artest that was guarding him this time. It was a high pick and roll. Yao steps out. Instead of trying to jump over him, he just changes direction, forces Yao to move his feet, which, in the scouting report said, look, he can't really move. And he went by him, got him on his hip, and finished and won the game. He gets interviewed on TV. McHale's laughing at me and said, you think you'll ever hear from him again? I go, absolutely not. This is going to be a one-game deal. And then like 90 seconds to a minute after Kobe gets interviewed after his game, like right on the court there, I get an email on my phone saying, hey, look, I get San Antonio tomorrow. I need to do the same thing. And I did that for 4 years and just sort of tracking what he does, tracking. So basically every game he would get from me, a scouting report on the player he's guarding, his backup, and the backup's backup, who's guarding Kobe, the backup's backup, video, stats, critique on his play after games. We would talk by email probably 5 or 6 times a day. And then he would play his game, and then I would probably start talking to him about 90 minutes toward 2 hours after his game, after he's iced and, showered and all that. And then we would just start doing, preparing for the next game. And, just watching him and got a chance to work him out about 25, 30 times. I wasn't really his workout guy at all. I worked him out once prior to me working with him when I was working for a camp at Nike. And then he brought me out to LA for about 10 days. And we did a lot of work out there while I was there in about 2011. But most of my communication was through email and text, and basically just sort of giving him this information, studying his game, giving him critiques, going back and forth. And you're talking about a guy with a routine. The first time I worked him out was 2008. He was just coming off the loss to the Celtics in the finals. The camp that I was at is actually his camp. It was the Kobe Bryant Skills Academy run by Nike grassroots basketball. So they would invite like 20 of the I think 20 of the top shooting guards in the country under the Nike umbrella in high school, and then also 15 or 20 college players, two guards to work out as well. And Kobe was there watching, helping the kids, working with the kids, whatever. So he would work out, and I had him, he had me work him out at like 5 a.m. and watching his workout. We worked out for 2 hours, and then after the workout, he just gave me a schedule the rest of the day. It was like from there. So we were at around 7:30 a.m. He was like, "All right, I gotta lift, I gotta eat, I gotta do yoga, I gotta stretch." I got to go take a nap. And then, he had like martial arts in there too, track work at night. And then he was going to come back the next day and do, I asked him, I said, "Do you want me to do the same thing tomorrow? I can come back." He goes, "You can come back, but it's going to be all defense tomorrow. I'm not touching the ball. It's going to be closeouts, closeouts, rotations, working on my footwork with defensively and things like that." So just watching him do that and talking to him about his routine every day, that he had the mentality of the 11th best man, but he was the best player on his team and one of the best players in the league. And just to sort of walk me through what he would do every day just to get ready, take care of his body, ice, heat, stretching. You work at a gym. You worked at a gym a little bit. Jake. The pluses to the body about stretching and taking care of it by ice and heating, and he. But the routine that he had was phenomenal. And then watching some lesser players that would just show up, get shots up for 10 minutes, and that was their day, and lift a little bit, and that was basically their day, compared to his day of like all this work just to, and he didn't have to do it, but this was '08. So we're talking what, 10 years into his career, 11 years, no, we're talking, when did he come in? 90. So we're talking about 12 years into his career. Here's this guy, you know, 30, 31 years old, doing this. And, he's already established, he's a Hall of Fame player, but he's already doing this. And so anytime I work with a player, it's not like trying to work him out like he's Kobe Bryant, because that's just counterproductive. But any kid, like, so if you're going to be coaching in Lynn next year and you have a lot of inner city Lynn kids, any kid could prepare like Kobe Bryant. They didn't have to play like him, but the studying of opponent, the taking care of your body, getting your shots up, studying the game, being simple with your workouts. Like, he would stay on one spot for 5 straight minutes. And that's a long time if you think about it. 5 minutes on one spot, you're talking about 110 reps on one spot if you're getting a lot of shots up and quickly, and until things felt right or they just were right. So I think players' routines when they work out in the summer, especially high school kids, they work on things that they're never going to do in games. They'll work 90% of their workouts on things they'll do 2% of the time. I think it's just not productive. The one thing about Kobe's workouts, they were always 100% of things, 98% of the things that he'll do in games. He would very rarely work on those unbelievable moves you would see him do in games. He would want to master everything individually. He would never do combo moves or all these like really fancy things. He would just do basic things. It was pretty cool to watch. And I think if you're growing up in any city, in inner city, or any player, it doesn't matter if you're in the city or not, like, to be able to prepare like he did, regardless of what your level of talent is, level of play. If you could study your opponent, study your own game, try to listen to people that know a little bit more than you, and just take care of yourself and take care of yourself in the classroom. And that's another thing. Like, Kobe knew like 5 languages. He would swear in Croatian and Spanish during workouts. He would talk to his dog in Croatian. Like, the guy, you're talking about a guy that, that not only dominated in basketball, but, was a successful business person, successful in life, had a family, did all these things. I mean, and he was very smart in school, had great grades, could have went anywhere he wanted, could have went to the Ivy League in high school if he wanted. And that was a McDonald's All-American, best player in the country. Yeah, he wasn't just saying, "I'm going to be a basketball player, I'm going to have a C average, and I'm just going to be whatever." He was a guy who was straight A student, most likely. I don't know his transcripts, but I know he was.
There was a quote in the the last game. I can't remember what exactly it was. I think Phil Jackson said it. It was something like you're only successful when you're in the act of committing successful acts or something like that. You can't base your past on what you're doing now because you might not. You were successful in the past. It doesn't mean you're going to be successful in the future if you're not committing successful
Yeah.
work. You know?
And that's what like Kobe, you would always like Kobe would always talk about being successful in business. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. But like, I always thought he'd be successful, but to the level he was after he played, like doing the, that body armor drink and then doing the kids shorts and the books. But anyway, I mean, he was a guy that was very dedicated. Like when he was going to do something, he gave you 1,000%. He was pretty cool. He was a good guy to deal with. And just to be able to take that, just to take that to other players was pretty cool and significant. And again, lesser players. And I would never like try to work. Like I said, I would never try to like drop Kobe's name every 2 seconds. But when the name of Kobe was brought up, we would talk about more of his preparation rather than the 3-spin fadeaway he would do to win a game. Like, not teaching him stuff like that. I knew every move that Kobe did, but it wasn't about that. It was about trying to bring something that's going to help the kid or help the player, more about the preparation part or some simple things that he would do rather than the advanced things that you see on YouTube.
Yeah, and I mean it's the fact that Kobe had that opportunity. You had the opportunity to work with Kobe rather, and then when Dallas called you to bring you in as the director of player development, you really realized it wasn't just. I'm guessing, but you realized it wasn't just, let me help him with this move and that move. Like Kobe would, like it was. How can I prepare myself and always be doing the right thing on and off the court? Have a schedule, have a routine, and be a player that's going to contribute by doing the right things all the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a graveyard of players that never made it and they should have. I mean, we all know the stories of players in our own backyard that had all this talent and could have made it and they didn't. And most of it's not talent based. It's more like behavior or just failure to fit in or can't be coached or whatever. So we try to instill as many traits as that in Dallas as possible. We were very successful in working in my 6 years, dealing with players that were undrafted or late drafts that ended up being really good players that, had long lasting careers in either Dallas or other places because they we put them on a schedule and a routine early and sort of developed this winning mentality and winning mindset of, not only being on the court and doing whatever you got to do on the court, but surviving and being relevant as long as they can. And I think, I always try to attribute it to Olympic basketball, like when you're working with a team. And like, look, you can have one or two great players, but how many players that play on USA basketball that I just did a blog post for my newsletter last night. I was talking about Klay Thompson, Jimmy Butler, and DeMar DeRozan, three guys that are, like franchise players, could be Hall of Famers, of course. And when they go to USA basketball, they play 18, 20 minutes a night. They don't really get many shots. They average about 8 or 9 points a game. They're not go-to guys, but they all fit a role. Defender, cutter, shot maker. They don't get plays called for them. And they find a way to help USA basketball beat the best players on the planet and the best other teams outside the United States. And you got to think of yourself like you're on an Olympic team where, like, on your regular team in the NBA for 82 games in playoffs, you're the man. But when you get to a team that you need to like focus in on winning and you're not necessarily the go-to guy, right, you gotta fit a role that's going to help that team win. And not everybody can do that. And
and some of the greats, like you look back in the history of the greats, like not everybody, some people came in with the best player in their team, but when you look at Kawhi Leonard, the role he played for San Antonio, and then like Steph Curry even played a small role when Monte Ellis was there. Like you see all these players that play a role. Tim Duncan contributed and helped out David Robinson. Like you see all these guys, and they're good at what you're saying is playing that role that they need to play to help that team. You know what I mean?
yeah.
They dominate. Like Tim Duncan dominated with Forrest, but he contributed off of what David Robinson was doing, stuff like that.
Yeah, I was one of my mentors when I was young was a guy named Herb Livesey, and Herb was a old time college coach. He was director of player development in the CBA, which was basically the D League before the D League, and he was a scout for the Portland Trailblazers, and he taught me. He was a great evaluator of talent, one of the best I've ever seen. And he would tell me when he's evaluating a prospect, he goes, look, it's easy to scout and evaluate and tell you 100 things that they can't do or whatever. You got to evaluate the one skill that can get them in a game, and just that one skill that could get them in a game. And I think I took that not only when I evaluated talent, but also when I work with talent. You got to develop that one skill that's going to get you in a game and keep you relevant. And then off of that, you can build off of some other things. And I think that players they get cloudy in their head, and they try to, be okay at 10 different things instead of being great at any one thing. And when you,
One thing.
yeah, when you're just okay at a bunch of things and you're working on like, yeah, like if you're working on like this crossover, two dribble step back, whatever. If you like it, you don't like it, whatever. But if you work on it 3 times and then you try it in a game the next week, it's not really going to work. If you're going to develop that as your one skill, like I could create my space, I can get a shot whenever I want on that move. You work on that move 50, 60 times a workout, 50, 60 times a day. So you got to develop that one skill, and that's what I always ask a player when we bring them in the first meeting. What is your one skill that's going to help us get to the playoffs? Win us a championship. What's that one skill? And they'll be like, well, I'm okay. No. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear what's that one skill. Our sports psychologist always made a great analogy, like to a rookie, because we had a veteran coach, Rick Carlisle, won a championship, mostly more of a veterans coach than a rookie coach, that could deal with rookies. Just because most coaches, when they work in the league for a long time, they'd rather players they could trust and rely on. And usually in the NBA, it's veterans rather than rookies. So when we got a guy that's trying to come in that took 19, 20 shots a game for the college team and that they're used to having the ball in their hands, he would make a sports psychologist named Don Cockstein, who worked for the Red Sox for a long time, worked for when they won the championship, back in the early 2000s. Then he worked for the Rangers, and he worked for the Rangers and the Mavericks, and brilliant guy. And he would make the analogy, which I always use. He goes, look, thinking about your coach running a barbecue. Okay, so Jay Canty, you're the head coach at whatever school in Lynn you're going to be a head coach at, or wherever in the North Shore, and you're the head coach at the school, and you're running the barbecue, and you ask player X to, hey, bring the ice. I just need the ice. We got this guy bringing the hot dogs, the hot dog buns, the chips, the dessert. I just need you to bring the ice. And then that guy brings a half a bag of ice, but he brings chips, devil dogs, da 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 da. And you're like, no. I just asked you to bring the ice. That's what I'm depending you on. Now we don't have the ice. We have half the ice we need. Now everybody's gonna have warm drinks because you didn't do your job. So when you need to bring the ice in the barbecue, you bring the ice. And so when you are a player on the team, and a coach needs you and depends on you, to do that one thing, and you're trying to do 5 other things, that's not doing your job, and that's not helping your team win. So
if you're a guy, you have an offensive scorer that likes to attack off the dribble. If you're someone that just sits in the corner and sits in the wing and watches him, opposed to trying to find the fill spot on the perimeter, where's the best spot to be, or where to be in the game to help constantly moving instead of being stationary, just to help if he gets cut off, that you're open for that kick, right?
Yeah. So in Dallas, we had this kid named Justin Anderson, who was a All-American forward at University of Virginia. We drafted him, I think, the 14th pick in the draft. And he was a little confused his first year. Again, he was an All-American, one of the best players in the ACC, and he comes in, and we've got all these other players that have the ball in their hands. And he's used to having the ball in his hands. So we were in the playoffs. We were going to get our butts beat by Oklahoma City. We had no chance, right? I think we even won a game in that series, maybe. But anyway, like we were talking, we were in pregame, and he goes, "Look, Mike, like we had Darren Williams, I think we had Harrison Barnes, you know, we had Dirk, we had these guys, and um, he was like, Mike, I don't know where to fit in. I said, look, you watched the film, right? I said, look, we're going to put you on the floor. We need you to play hard. Like, forget about – so, like, Darren's going to have the ball in his hands. And in pick and roll, you're going to be in the opposite corner. And he's going to be on the right side. You're going to be on the left side, left corner. He's going to be on the right side. We're going to run step-up screens to him and pick and roll. Everybody, if you watch eyes, and again, when you're watching film and you're watching yourself or you're a coach watching – the one thing I notice is just little things like that. On pick and rolls, everybody's watching the ball handler. Like no one's really watching anybody else off the ball, whatever. And especially into the pick and roll, when that big man's going to set the screen and roll to the basket, they're worried about either Darren getting to the rim or that roller getting to the basket, especially when the pick and roll is happening. So now when that's happening, they're going to take their eyes right off you. So what you need to do is when they take their eyes off you, you need to be able to sprint to the basket and cut and do this other stuff. So to your point, like if you're playing with a guy that dominates the ball, don't like try to like run to him and try to get the ball from him. You got to play in space and to keep, you know, either be a cutter or a spot up shooter or something like that, where you got to be, keep yourself relevant. And I think like bringing the ice, you got to do that one thing that like we already have the ball handler. It's Darren Williams. We already have our shooter. It's Dirk, you know, who's a go-to guy. We got all these other guys.
It seems like the ice, no one gets any value out of the ice because what the hell, I'm not getting my stomach full off the ice.
Exactly.
People can be pissed off if they're full.
You're not a nice guy, Jake, right? You like hot dogs and hamburgers like everybody else, right? You're American.
Yeah. So yeah, it's being able to, if you're not the ball handler, don't make it harder for the ball handler. Make it easier for him to find you.
But it's not sexy, you know.
It's not sexy, but it helps a ton.
Yeah, but look, you're playing in gyms when you're young. You're playing on AAU teams. You're playing on this. Like you watch, like who is everybody coming to watch? They're coming to watch the player who scores. Yeah. But it's not sexy to be a role player. But you know, tell that to players that made $50 or $60 million in their careers being, and look, there's almost going to be no one on the North Shore is going to be an NBA player, but I'm just saying, like, when you're coaching, say, look, like, yeah, it's not sexy to be the spot up shooter, but right now on our team, the spot up shooter is going to get minutes. I got, you know, there's 32 minutes in a high school game. I've got 22 minutes that I've got penciled in for anybody who could spot up shoot. You want to handle the ball. We've got that. All our minutes are all taken up. We could probably give you 3 minutes a game. We don't need a guy who can handle the ball. We need a guy who can spot up shoot. We need a guy who can get 9 rebounds a night. Like, do you want that? We got minutes for that guy. Do you not want to do that? I got minutes next to me sitting down. Like, and I think players got to understand that. Like, the head coach controls the minutes. If you like the head coach, you don't like the head coach, they control the minutes. So why not do something that's going to get you on the floor?
You can help yourself. And say you're the spot-up shooter, is if my point guard drives and my ball handler drives, they continuously collapse. They're not collapsing if you're hitting that corner shot so much.
Sure.
And you're going to earn yourself some minutes if you knock that down continuously, because you're making it easier for my drivers.
Yeah, and if you're going to be that spot-up shooter, your workout routine every day has to be majority of that shot in the corner. Like, because you train your brain. Like, that's the shot you're going to get. You know, look, you got to be prepared for other stuff. I get it. But like, if you're going to get 6 shots a game and over a 10-game period, you study in your own game. Over a 10-game period, you took 60 shots and 53 of them were that left corner jumper. Well, what do you think you should be working on every day? It's that left corner jumper, and then sprinkle in some other things. But the thing that you're going to do the most is what you need to be doing every day in your workout, like 90% of the time. And, you know, yeah, but, you know, it's not sexy. It's I understand the players. I understand the players deal, but I don't know. It's tough.
I mean, I just think you can help yourself by starting by saying, I'll do that first, and I'm going to get really good at that. And then you might open my mind and be like, maybe we put the ball in his hand because he knocks it down all the time. So my thought is like, if there's a player who's clearly solidified himself as the ball handler, you know, and your job is going to be that corner shot. Why don't you find out how he likes to drive so you can find out before the season even starts or practice even starts, where am I going to get my shots? Just by knowing that the tendencies of the ball handler. If he's a lefty, he likes to go left, his escape pass might be that corner shot right there. So work on that one. It might be something else. Just know your teammates and help yourself, because the quicker you can make an impression that you can help the team, the better chance you're going to have later of developing your minutes and developing your game in other ways.
Yeah, I mean, as usual, you're a step ahead of things. I mean, it's all about communication. It's you know, as a player, you need to talk to your player. You know, I talk to your teammates about like, look, where do you need me? Like when you drive and this guy, like, where do you need me to be in your vision? Like, are you better if I'm staying in the corner? Should I lift up? Should I cut? And then also like, I think it's up to the coach to talk to the player. And you know, the biggest thing I think as a coach is to communicate with your players. Like, I think, again, being around so many different coaches in my career, and most of them are the same. But most of them, like, especially when they're upset with players, they sort of become passive aggressive a lot. Like they'll complain about players in meetings, and you know when they're talking to their staff, oh, Johnny doesn't roll, or Johnny doesn't do this, or Johnny doesn't do that. My question always for the staff when I was in meetings was like, did anybody tell Johnny he's not rolling, and we're not happy with that? And they're like, no, he needs to know that. I'm like, no. I said, as coaches, like if we're feeling a certain way about a player because we need them to do something different, or they're not doing something good enough, or they're not playing because of this reason, we need to tell them, look, like this is why you're not playing. I need you to do this so we're on the same page. You don't have to scream at them. You don't have to throw chairs at them. You don't have to yell at them what you need or threaten them. You need to just tell them. And they say, look, I'm gonna continue to go to you, but I need you to start doing this. If not, I'm gonna have to find someone who does. And at least now you put it out there for them. You told them what they need to do, and if they don't do it, it's on them. And you know, and then it gives them the answer to. I always want to tell the players the answers to the test. Like I always want to tell the players the answer to the test. You know, why if you're as a coach, if you get that answer key and you could give it to your player and it's legal to give it to them, why not give it to them? Why like have them figure things out? It's the craziest thing that I've ever heard of, but it happens in coaching offices all over the world on all different levels. And I think the best types of coaches, not all the time, but you know, successful coaches at all levels, I think they communicate. They talk to their players, they talk to their staff, they try to develop, and they're not going to develop and get better unless you tell them what you expect.
You should talk from your best player all the way to your 12th player, which is 13, talk to your 13th best player, and tell them what they can do to improve themselves, so maybe they can get that 8th or 9th spot on the rotation. You know what I mean? That the 12th player can fight for the rotation spot. The rotation player can fight for the starter spot just by they knowing their role and what they have to develop. Like I went to a lot of college games to watch a player that I trained, and she was a freshman, and it was like she hadn't been told what she needed to develop. So I went as a trainer. I'm like watching the offense. I'm like, I think if you did this more, you might be able to contribute more eventually to this team. Not now, but you should be working on the X, Y, and Z, so that next season or whenever it is that you're going to get your opportunity, you've got X, Y, and Z down, so you're going to be a contributor.
Yeah, and I think as players, they got to do a better job. And young people, it's tough. I get it. Like young people don't want to really communicate with a coach because they always think it's an awkward conversation. Yeah. And usually those conversations end up being arguments like, why am I not getting better shots, whatever. But if you go to your coach and be like, look, like, what do I need to really be doing? It's a two-way responsibility. Like they're responsible going up to the coach. Like, what do I need to do to get more minutes or more whatever, right? And then what's up?
As a coach, you need to have thought about what player 12 should have been doing.
But you need to give them a straight answer. Like And usually those answers that they give them are, oh, you no, don't worry about it. You just need to keep working hard. You'll be all right. That's not an answer. Like you need something that they can. And I know why most coaches do it. A, they don't really think about it anyway, and they just want to get them out of that conversation.
They don't
And
want football players well.
yeah, and B, like you want to give them a gray answer that they can't really like judge or count or judge. They could just like, oh, just work harder or just keep getting your shots up. Like, no, like you need to consistently make that left corner jumper. You need to screen better. You need to like, you need to do X, Y, or Z. And I think as a coach, you need to be more direct. A coach in general needs to be more direct with their players about what they need to do. But players got to start that conversations a lot and be. It's hard because to be mature about talking to a coach when you know that you just want more minutes or more shots, but like you can't have it be you can't have it be an argument about it. You know, it has to be a civil conversation.
Well, I think as a coach, like my theory is the person behind you should always be good enough and working harder to threaten you to take. They're going to make you better if they're working harder. So I'm always going to teach the 12th player how to threaten the 8th and 9th best player, those rotation players. But that's going to make my 8th and 9th rotation guys better, right? Like if the worst player on my team is really making it hard on my rotation player is getting better because he needs to compete. And the same thing goes for the starters. When they get better from that 12th player, now they're making player 4 and 5 or whatever it is a better player because they're working hard just based off of that player from behind them. It's
I agree.
Competition, you know.
Coach Canty, I like that tie. Where'd you get it? Neiman Marcus?
No, I think this is a Target special, Coach.
No. Target? Get out of here.
It's the Gauss color. But we got friends that coach.
Hey. All right.
We got some friends that were at Endicott College.
Yeah. Mitch Ford, local legend, Luke Richards. And then obviously, again, Kevin Betancourt. But those other two, Mitch Ford and Luke Richards.
Yeah.
And then, obviously accompanied by Kevin Betancourt as well.
Yeah. Coach Richards taught me I was in my early 20s, or my mid-20s, I should say, when I first met him.
Mm-hmm.
It's a saying that I've heard you repeat as well. But I was playing pickup with him. And I think I was doing too much within the offense. And he goes, Canty, keep it simple. And I've heard one of your sayings, so I listened to a lot of the hoop consulting things, the webinars that you put on. And one of your lines was, what was it, Coach? It was
dominate simple. I steal most of my stuff from Coach Richards. So yeah, I mean, dominate simple is just something that it just where I'm not a big sayings guy, but I'm not a big I don't like having those posters like there's nothing to fear but fear itself. But I think dominate simple again is something that if players and coaches and people could sort of, instead of like being bogged down and clouded by 98 different things, just keep it simple. Like dominate the simple things, because not everybody wants to do that. Like everybody wants to be the CEO, but nobody wants to be a ditch digger. And in the game, we're filled at all levels. There's 80% that plays in the game across the world are ditch diggers. They're role players and below. They're not great. They're not the all-star player that gets every shot. They're the ditch digger. And I think if, it's not a real great term, to say to a player, you need to be a ditch digger, but like you need to start with that. And you need to be a simple, the game's pretty simple. I think we complicate it with over dribbling, moves and bad shots but no defense and all that. If we keep it simple and again, have everybody sort of have a role and say, look, this is your role, but you can do a little bit more than this, but like, let's keep it to this for the most part. And then we'll continue to try to get you better and do more, but let's just keep it simple. But yeah, Coach Richards, of course, I mean, he's, one of the top Division III assistants in the country. I don't expect anything less from him.
For sure. I've talked to him for at least 5 years, I'd say. I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole ditch digger thing reminds me of my grandfather, who actually just passed away.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. He was from the Highlands. He used to say, if you're gonna dig a hole, be the best hole digger there is. Like if you're
Yeah.
gonna if whatever you do, be the best at it, right? So if your job is to dig holes, be the best damn hole digger, ditch digger in the country, right?
I totally agree. I totally agree.
He literally dug holes, like in his session.
Was that Cornelius Canty?
No, Francis Xavier Colony.
Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, I know there's a famous Lynn guy named Cornelius Canty in the 1800s. I don't know if that had anything to do with you.
I don't know.
Okay.
But my grandfather when he was from Lynn, and then he moved to Nahampa. He was in his 70s digging ditches. He actually
Like I said, it amazes me that you're from Nahan. I picture you as a Lynn guy for sure, 100%.
Anyways, Mike, I appreciate your time. I'm grateful. I hope everyone listening, people who like to be around basketball, all my supporters got a lot out of this. It has been a pleasure for me, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of the schedule. How do you feel?
Coach Canty, it's always a pleasure. Let me know the school that ends up hiring you and is lucky enough to have you so I can come to a couple of games next year, if there are people allowed to go to games.
Yeah, keep me updated on the NBA. I'm looking forward to that.
Let me know where you got your tie so I can get 10.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
All right, brother.
All right.
Later.